Hi everyone, this is page 5 of the Algebra 1B test review for Chapter 1, and this page focuses all on graphs. I want you to notice the directions, say, for each of the graphs below, determine whether or not it's a function, so that's going to be like a yes or no, and then if it is, we need to give domain and range, so sort of a two-part thing here. So first off, to determine whether or not it is a function, remember that's where we're going to use what's called the vertical line test. And that's where I want to draw vertical lines on my graph and see if there's any place on the graph that a vertical line would hit more than once. And you'll notice with my pointer here, I'm drawing vertical lines, and there's nowhere that I would hit the graph more than one time. So for this one, I would say yes, this is a function. Now I need to give domain and range. So for domain, I want to say how far to the right and to the left does this graph cover? And then for range, it's how far up and down does it cover. So when you have endpoints, okay, which if you notice the ends of this graph does not have arrows on it, so it does not keep going, you want to say what number specifically does this graph go to? Well, over here it goes to -6, and over here it goes to +6. So for my domain, I would say, I'm going to zoom this in so I have a little more room to write. I would say it's everything between -6 and 6. And this is the notation that you would use. Your inequalities are always going to point that way. They're always going to be less thans because you're listing your numbers from smallest to biggest. So you're saying this number is smaller than x, but x is smaller than this number. It's between -6 and 6. All right, let me bring that graph back for a minute, because now we need to look at range. For range, I want to go to the highest point on my graph and the lowest point on my graph, okay? Which up here, this is 1, and then this is -1. So going up and down for the range, I go from -1, and when you're talking range, you're using y instead of x. It goes from -1 to 1, okay? So your answers are going to look like this anytime your graph has endpoints, meaning they don't have arrows, they don't go on forever, okay? Let's take a look at number 32. Now number 32 is a little bit different because the endpoints here are arrows. So this graph technically goes on forever. It doesn't just go out to 7 or whatever number, 7. It goes on and on and on and on. So my domain and range are different. I'm getting a little ahead of myself because first I need to decide if this is a function. So look at my vertical lines. Is there anywhere I'm drawing a vertical line where it would cross more than one time? Answer to that is no. So we would say yes, this is a function. Okay. Then for domain, I want to ask myself, if I build a wall off to the left of my function, and if I build a wall off to the right of my function, eventually will my line hit my wall? The answer here is yes, and I did that really close to the graph just because I don't have a lot of room here, but I could draw a wall way out here and way out here, and my graph would still eventually hit it. So that's really what you're looking at with the quote-unquote wall. Is you're saying, can I put a wall off to the left or off to the right and have my graph eventually hit it? If the answer is yes for our domain, because it's going to hit everything from left to right, I would say all real numbers. Now for my range, doing the same thing but building my walls above and below. So here's a wall above, here's a wall below. Notice that, and when I build those walls, by the way, you want to kind of assume that those walls go on and on forever too. So just because I stopped my blue line out here doesn't mean it doesn't keep going. Okay, it's going to go on forever. That was a terrible wall. Sorry about that. Eventually, my graph is going to hit this wall up above. Okay, it is going to hit up here. But down here, I'm never going to be able to hit this. So when I find a place where it's not going to hit, I say, okay, then what's the lowest point this graph hits? Well, the lowest is right here, which is at y equals 0. So this graph hits everything from 0 up. And so for my range, this is what it would look like. I'm going to start with all reals, greater than or equal, because it's bigger than 0. So my range here would be all real numbers greater than or equal to 0. Okay, let's look at the next one. All right, number 33. I want you to notice that with this one, if I draw a vertical line, I'm going to actually draw the vertical line on this one. If I draw a vertical line, I'm going to hit here and hit here. So this is not a function, okay, because it fails the vertical line test, and that might be important to notice too. Okay, so that one fails the vertical line test, not a function. I can't do domain and range if it's not a function. Okay, so let's look at 34. 34, if I check with my vertical lines, is a function, which means I need domain and range. So I'm going to build my walls. So wall to the left, wall to the right. Will this graph eventually hit my walls? The answer is yes. Now, it's not going to hit it here on my screen. Okay, it would probably go up for a ways, but if I extended that wall upward, yes, this would eventually hit that one. And same thing here, it would eventually hit here too. So it's eventually going to hit everything left to right. Even if I extended my walls way out here and way out here, eventually this graph would hit those. So for my domain, it's going to hit everything, so I would say all real numbers. And then for my range, this one is actually really similar to the one right above it. I'm going to build a wall down here, build a wall up here. This will eventually hit the wall up above, okay, so it's going to keep going upward, but it won't hit below. So then I ask myself, all right, what's the lowest point on that graph? Lowest point is right here, which is again 0. So for my range, I would say all real numbers greater than or equal to 0. Okay, let's move down to 35. All right, 35, just so you know, the graph that you're looking at is this line right here. And so when I check with my my vertical lines, I'm never going to hit that graph more than one time. So this is a function. By the way, if it were a vertical line, it would not be a function. For my domain, let's build my walls to the left of the graph, build my walls to the right of the graph, and yes, eventually my graph is going to hit those purple walls. Okay, it's going to hit there, it's going to hit there. So for my domain, all real numbers. Now range is a little bit trickier on this one. So I say, let's build a wall below and a wall above and ask, will my graph ever hit either of those walls? The answer is no, okay? It's never going to hit anywhere above the graph, and it's never going to hit anywhere below the graph. It's only going to hit right here, okay? It never goes above that, it never goes below that, it just stays right here. So that y value is at, starting from the center of the graph, 1, 2, 3. So for this one, my range is just 3. The only number that my graph is ever going to hit is 3. And let's take a look at this last one. When I check with my vertical lines, I do hit more than one time. Okay, so here's my vertical line. I hit there, and so this would be a big fat no, again, because it fails the vertical line test. Okay, good luck to you. Happy studying, and check with us in class if you have any questions.